You're watching TVC Breakfast. It's 61 years anniversary, 61st anniversary of independence in Nigeria. And all of Nigerians are commemorating that today. From whatever point you can only imagine the variety of areas that Nigerians are seeing Nigeria from. Some with hope, others with some level of skepticism, others with lamentation, depending on where you are and what you're going through. Now let's get into a further discussion. President Buhari's speech contained some unexpected and cheering news, especially for the youths. Mr. President has temporarily lifted the ban on Twitter, stating that social media is a very useful platform that has enabled millions of Nigerians to connect with loved ones, promote their businesses, socialize, and access news and other information. He cautioned Nigerians on the misuse of Twitter to coordinate and execute criminal activities, propagate fake news, and promote ethnic and religious sentiments. After months of engagement with Twitter, issues addressed include national security and cohesion, registration, physical presence and representation, fair taxation, dispute resolution, and local content.
Social media is a very useful platform that has enabled millions of Nigerians to connect with loved ones, promote their businesses, socialize, and access news and other information. Following the suspension of Twitter operations, Twitter Incorporated reached out to the federal government of Nigeria to resolve the impasse. Subsequently, I constituted a presidential committee to engage Twitter to explore the possibility of resolving the issue. The committee, along with its technical team, has engaged with Twitter and have addressed a number of key issues. These are A, national security and cohesion, B, registration, physical presence and representation, C, fair taxation, D, dispute resolution, and E, local content. Following the extensive engagements, the issues are being addressed, and I have directed that the suspension be lifted, but only if the conditions are met to allow our citizens continue to use the platform for business and positive engagements.
All right, that was the word of the president. He has instructed that the ban be lifted, but on the condition that those things he listed earlier on in the issue of national security, cohesion and registration, physical presence and representation, fair taxation, dispute resolution and local content, only when those things are addressed. I have with me in the studio to make sense of that part of his speech. Obaniyi Akinwale, analyst, is in the house. Obaniyi, good morning and happy independence.
Good morning, and let me congratulate you again for the victory we had yesterday.
Oh, thank you very much.
I know you do, but one day you do us like Papilo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Sheson Kwade is here as well, chartered accountant and public affairs analyst. Sheson, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
And happy independence.
Friday,
exactly.
Happy independence, and well, we keep the hope alive.
Exactly.
Irrespective of it.
Okay, Nia, I wonder what you make of the president's speech. One of my guests earlier said, well, it's good he touched on Twitter, but it was still very vague. We're expecting that, okay, I've given instruction that Twitter be lifted, but there are conditions here. But we don't know at what level these conditions are being met and at what time frame. Talk to us.
I think, first of all, without being unfair to the current government, I think at any point in time, President Muhammadu Buhari, for me, displayed that indeed is a general by first pronouncing Twitter ban. It takes somebody that has balls. And if you see that globally, after Nigeria took the bull by the horn, every other nation began to look at how things should be done properly. And you recall vividly that Twitter called a bluff of the Nigerian president then even vis-a-vis people are using private VPN services to ensure they boycott the IPC and say they are in another location. Nonetheless, for the first time, we have a general that says that indeed Nigeria is a sovereign nation and as such will not be trampled with. Now, going again to the speech of Mr. President, I think one of the things that the presidency has not done right immediately after the election are the speech writers for the Mr. President. I think for the first time, we have a president speak for about 37 minutes in a very calm, looking healthy and looking reassuring, so to say. But the choice of words, the lexical icons that you have in those statements are never for once convincing, and never for once reassuring. And you could see the conflict in the lifting of Twitter ban. Immediately he said, I have, the words of presidents are harder. And don't forget that as a commander-in-chief and CNC, and also being a former military person, when he says, I have, what we expect is that something positive and something powerful will have happened. But the next is not that it was a caveat. But, so what he says clearly is that we just want to create a fantasy around the Twitter ban, government being strong-headed, Twitter also not trying to renege on what they have started to do and what have you. So for me, yes, it is good that government has to call Twitter to order, but secondly, writing such few lines about Twitter, which is what about 50 to 60% of the population are interested in what direction are we going, after hearing from Alhaji Lai Mohammed a few weeks ago that very soon the Twitter ban will be lifted. Now we have a problem that the Twitter ban cannot and will not be lifted as the case may be. So for me, the presidency has not done anything about Twitter ban. Mr. Speechwriter has done a bad job in even including that part, even at the middle. In some situation when you want to give people hope on October 1 like this, you call people attention to the fact that now this is what the youth will need to hear. After deliberating with Twitter, after we have all crossed the T's and the dotted line, from October 1, all Twitter ban lifted. Then you don't even live like that, because the telco starts to call their security expert in terms of firewalls to start saying, how do we disengage all the policies we have put in place to ensure people get it? You don't just come on TV and read that. But what has the president told us that Alhaji Lai Mohammed has not told us in about 3 or 4 weeks ago? So for me, the speech as it were, yes, they have told us what they are doing, but there is nothing in the speech that is very, very direct, or very that you could say that yes, these are weighty words, these are words that you can go take to the market and verify. Okay. But for me, it is what it is. But we thank God for October 1. So
all right, Sheson, yeah, you listened to that, and I wonder how much of hope you have from what the president has said, because from his perspective, he's doing what is of interest to Nigeria as a country.
Yeah, well, maybe I will come from the perspective as a financial analyst, and we are always definite about things. Just like Obaniyi said, I was expecting from the speech to hear that as the federal, as the COC, the Chief of Command of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we are lifting the ban today, not having a caveat, not having to say if certain condition. I expect that by now, this condition, Minister of Information said they are actually in engagement with them. Considering the fact that President is going to speak on this on the 1st, we expect an affirmative word. Our President is someone that gives right order and say this must happen. But with this, we can't say whether it's going to happen today, whether it's going to happen next week, because the caveat is there. If all the conditions are met, we don't know the level at which they are with the negotiation, and that keeps us in suspense of what is really going on. So that's why I will support some of the things Obaniyi said, of which some of the guests too have said. I think the speech writers are not connecting to the populace. There should be an empirical figure, statistics on some of the things that are actually going on that you will be affirmative about. This issue of ban, to me, is just coming to say, let's down the tension. And I will say, fine, Twitter was banned. But do you know there are several usage? Everybody technically bypassed it, used VPN, and I will just tell the individual, well, it's banned to those that does not have the wherewithal or the understanding of how to bypass it. Several people, the high and mighty, were still using the VPN, if not directly, but they have a way of connecting to gather information, even some of the government agency, because they know that certain people, even outside the country, are making use of this Twitter, because it's not only resided to us in the country. So the fact remains that this ban, to me, it's not effective. It's not assuring the way I would have wanted it to be. I would have expected to hear a word that after due engagement with Twitter Incorporation and considering everything surrounding this fact, as from today, the first day of October 2021, we are lifting the ban. And all I will just do immediately the speech is gone on is to see how the telco will now communicate back to us, integrating some of these things people back. But as it is, I'm not optimistic that even in the next 1 month we might have access to
now, recall that when the president, one of the conditions there has to do with physical presence. Recall that one of the responses from Twitter, in one of the reports credited to them, was saying that to begin to work out a physical presence, of course, some of these days would take maybe until the first quarter of 2022. All right, we'll come back to this. Let's listen to that excerpt again to refresh our minds and to put things in perspective, and then we'll come and name them one by one, like they say.
Social media is a very useful platform that has enabled millions of Nigerians to connect with loved ones, promote their businesses, socialize, and access news and other information. Following the suspension of Twitter operations, Twitter Incorporated reached out to the federal government of Nigeria to resolve the impasse. Subsequently, I constituted a presidential committee to engage Twitter to explore the possibility of resolving the issue. The committee, along with its technical team, has engaged with Twitter and have addressed a number of key issues. These are A, national security and cohesion; B, registration, physical presence and representation; C, fair taxation; D, dispute resolution; and E, local content. Following the extensive engagements, the issues are being addressed, and I have directed that the suspension be lifted, but only if the conditions are met to allow our citizens continue to use the platform for business and positive engagements.
All right. Now, of course, the president recognizes that social media has come to stay, and it is a platform for millions of Nigerians to communicate, do business, socialize, and all of that. He acknowledged all of those. Now, the issue of fair taxation that is concerned with Twitter. Twitter is not the only OTT platform in Nigeria. There are others, Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. What happens when conditions are given to Twitter? Are we looking at the possibility, okay, maybe by the time Twitter is in place with that, then attention will shift to the others?
To be a template.
It's unfortunate, these are the best moments that I would have loved to have my brother, Obaniyi Ashaolu. There is an adage, but luckily, Mr. Sesokmade is also my elder brother from the same village. There is an adage that says, "Son láàrin, ajenimu ni pekoro." I will try and do what is close in English.
Son láàrin,
ajenimu ni pekoro.
Okay.
Call a spade a spade.
All right.
If no be Panadol, no be Panadol. The president understands the usefulness and the economic importance of Twitter. Let's play a scenario with Mr. President. Just imagine October 1, 1960. One of the people in the parliament just came from the British government, says, "We are going to declare independence October 1. But that's exactly what the president just did. If we said October 1, what does it symbolize to the government? What it symbolizes is the first time the black man begin to rule themselves. The first time the black jack was pulled down and the green white green was
the
raised
Union
up.
Jack, yeah.
June 5, another jack was pulled down, which is Jack Dorsey of Twitter. October 1st, the icing that the government will have put on the youth, I don't know who are their PR managers or who are their speechwriters, will have been, how long does it take the president to say we are shutting down the border? How long did it take us to tell the telecos to shut down the mass in Zamfara in Kaduna? How long do you think would take an organization like Twitter to have a physical presence in Nigeria when you have along Ikeja a lot of office spaces that people are not taking in, when they already have a country manager already in this country that do their things, when they have an account where people pay in to get the advert, everything done? I'm not sure the government is sincere with us, and I'm not sure these are the gifts over 60 million Nigerians will want. And the moment we continue not to call a spade, this is the kind of speech we get. I will imagine Mr. President Buhari hearing that Americans saying, you have paid for the Super Tucanos and we are releasing them, but how do we feel at this moment? So these are exact words that we should be careful. It is better they do not even include Twitter at all in the speech. Because what you have done again is that to arouse those angers of those young ones, the government is not even telling us that, okay, those of you that we can verify that run your businesses over Twitter, we are going to give you X amount of palliative to make sure that we ease off the burden. You know how many jobs were being lost? And at the end of the day, yes, the points are fair. But the question again is this, like you said, where are the statistics that other OTT like like Facebook, like Twitter, and what have you, had a physical office in Nigeria? And in the 21st century, when people agree portfolio investment and when office are mobile, that you don't need to have a physical office, are we still going back to 1943 where office must be physical to run businesses in this age?
All right. Now, these are all the questions out there, and these are the dynamics of the 21st century. Now, the point there is, he talked about the issue of national security. Of course, when you talk about national security, issues of fake speech, or fake news, hate speech, and misinformation, disinformation, all of those things are all involved, are embedded in somehow. And I wonder how that regulation is going to come if Twitter comes back on and we're saying, okay, Twitter shouldn't use its platform to enhance or to ensure that some of these things are there. So what do you think should be the measures going forward from that perspective?
Yeah, I think part of what the government is expecting from Twitter is possibly, for every online platform like this, there's always a back end where information is saved, control, and even if you're automating it to dish out, there are certain criteria that you put in. Even ordinary Yahoo mail that you use, I'm sure if you send the same content of mail, continuously, they will buy you. So it's just to put in certain words that they feel might be like a security threat. Once that word is identified, the system checks it and makes sure that such information is not spread abroad, on certain things. You would have seen control even with an organization like WhatsApp. When they first came in, you can share information as many as possible. So, but at the time they start restricting it, that they will tell you that you cannot send more than one to a particular person. But those days you can share to 500 at a go.
There is even the issue of the tag where it lets you know that this message has been forwarded
many times. You understand? So those are control mechanisms that the owner of that platform were able to put in check. So if government is asking that you need to prioritize national security and cohesion, definitely at their back end is just to write some codes and watch out for certain words that they feel. And as soon as those things are, it will not filter into the populace. That is one. But you see, my concern, like we keep saying, they've come to raise our hope, but the hope is not there because they are not definite about this. If you are talking about physical presence of some of those people here, they need to rent an office. they need to, the one that has to do with national security, they need to implement some codes to checkmate some of these activities. These are some of the things that we accept that by now we should be hearing, you know, maybe because we are financial analysts, we like figures. Say at this level, we've gotten to like 80%, you know, agreement on this. We've checked their back end on some of the things they tend to put in place on this security aspect, and we can have a go. They will complete it maybe in the next few weeks, and we monitor things. Physical presence, we've been able to see that they've done their registration to this level on the issue, because it's when they are here physically, you can talk of fair taxation, you know, on them. So some of these things we expect empirical figures to give the assurance. As we speak, they have only tell us that the president has suspended, and let me use the word of my brother, but what is after the but is not left for us to think about.
All right.
sorry, let me quickly add this.
Unfortunately, okay,
if you refuse to give accurate and enough information, fake news will continue to try. So the information manager should continue to pump us with information that we need to know, we need to hear, and we need to understand. Otherwise, continue to ban Facebook, ban Twitter. We'll create our own local language and start creating news. So government should do more on their own part and leave the peddlers of fake news, because when the good news is more than the fake news, apparently but they are not speaking to us except for bots and nothing more.
All right. We look forward to how these things will pan out eventually. Thank you very much, Obaniyi Akinwale, for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Sheikh Kwadi, thank you very much for coming as well.
My pleasure, always mine.
And God bless Nigeria.
Of course, that's always our prayer.
All right.